What happens when one of TV's most legendary creators tries to bring a little-known superhero to life? He had a rising star, a high-tech suit, and a bold new take on the genre. It should have been a hit. Instead, it vanished into obscurity. So what went wrong? How did a promising comic book adaptation become a forgotten relic of 90s television? This is the history of NightMan. Before it became a television show, NightMan was a character in Malibu Comics' Ultraverse, an imprint launched in the early 90s. If Malibu Comics sounds familiar, that's because it was one of the many independent publishers that rose during the 90s comic book boom, competing against Marvel and DC with its own lineup of original superheroes. The company eventually got absorbed by Marvel in 1994, but not before introducing a load of new characters, including Johnny Domino, aka NightMan. Created by Steve Englehart, NightMan made his first appearance in the NightMan comic book in 1993. But the Ultraverse didn't last long. It was slowly phased out, with characters like NightMan getting only sporadic appearances before disappearing completely. Despite the Ultraverse fizzling out in comics, the idea of a NightMan TV show caught the attention of Glen A. Larson. Larson saw potential in bringing NightMan to television, not just as another superhero show, but as a blend of crime drama, science fiction, and action, much like his earlier hits. The series was developed for syndication, which meant it wouldn't air on a major network, but instead be sold to local stations across the US. Once NightMan was greenlit for production, the challenge was finding an actor who could bring Johnny Domino to life. The role demanded a blend of action hero charisma, musical credibility, and the ability to pull off a superhero suit without looking ridiculous. Matt McComb was chosen for the lead role. A former stuntman and fitness model turned actor, McComb had already built a strong action-oriented resume, having worked as a stunt double in Terminator 2 and leading his own action films like Acts of Betrayal. He had the physicality, martial arts background, and square-jawed hero look that fit the mold of 1990s television action stars. With the lead actor in place, the rest of the cast was assembled to flesh out Johnny's world. The supporting characters included Frank Domino, his father, played by veteran actor Earl Holliman. Frank was a retired police detective who provided Johnny with moral support and occasional investigative help. The character added a sense of grounding to the show, giving Johnny a familial connection to law enforcement. The role of Raleigh Jordan was filled by Derek Webster in the first season and Derwin Jordan for the second, playing Johnny's closest ally and the man responsible for developing the NightMan suit. The show also introduced Jessica Rogers, played by Felicia M. Bell, as the owner of the House of Soul, the jazz club where Johnny performed. Michael Woods played Lieutenant Charlie Dan, a San Francisco cop who worked with Johnny's father and occasionally found himself caught up in NightMan's world. With the cast in place, NightMan was ready to launch.
A freak accident, or one man's destiny. Johnny Domino is blessed.
I felt what he was thinking.
At its core, NightMan was a superhero story with a unique twist. Johnny wasn't just another masked vigilante patrolling the streets. He was a jazz musician who, through a freak accident, developed the ability to hear evil thoughts. This was not a power he could control or turn off. It was always there, constantly feeding him the dark intentions of criminals, killers, and corrupt figures. But unlike traditional superheroes, Johnny didn't have any enhanced combat abilities. Instead, he relied on technology to bridge the gap between his human limitations and the growing threats he faced. When NightMan premiered on September 15, 1997, it entered a television landscape filled with syndicated shows trying to capture the success of series like Baywatch and Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. The show's debut was met with a mixed reception. Critics were divided on the show's execution. Some praised the ambitious concept and Matt McComb's physicality in the lead role, acknowledging that he looked the part of an action hero. Others pointed out the show's low-budget production values, which were evident in the special effects, set design, and costuming. The NightMan suit itself was visually striking, but the show's attempts at flight sequences and laser effects often fell short of convincing. The practical stunts and hand-to-hand combat scenes were more effective, playing to McComb's strengths as a stunt performer. One of the major criticisms was the writing. While the premise had potential, the episodic storytelling often felt inconsistent, shifting between grounded crime stories and outlandish sci-fi elements without a clear identity. Despite these issues, NightMan managed to find a small but loyal audience. The first season laid the foundation for NightMan's world, introducing its main characters and establishing Johnny Domino's double life as a musician and crime fighter. However, behind the scenes, changes were already brewing that would significantly impact the show's direction moving forward. While Glen A. Larson had a long history of bringing ambitious television concepts to life, NightMan was a different kind of challenge. It was a superhero series being made on a limited budget, relying on special effects and action sequences that were difficult to execute convincingly without the resources of a major network production. The biggest behind-the-scenes shakeup came when Season 1 ended and production was relocated from Los Angeles to Vancouver, Canada. This move was largely a cost-saving measure, as filming in Canada was significantly cheaper due to tax incentives and lower production costs. The transition led to the departure of several key cast members, including Earl Holliman as Johnny's father, Frank Domino, and Felicia M. Bell as Jessica Rogers. While Matt McCallum remained in the lead role, his interactions with characters who had been part of his story in Season 1 were now gone. Their replacements, such as Jane Heitmeyer's Lieutenant Bryony Branca, were introduced with little context, making the second season feel disconnected from what had come before. Another issue was the inconsistent tone of the show. The second season veered into more outlandish science fiction and fantasy elements, introducing stories that involved interdimensional beings, psychic villains, and even a crossover with Manimal, another Glen A. Larson creation from the 1980s. While some fans appreciated the willingness to embrace the bizarre, others found the tonal shifts jarring. The show never fully committed to a single identity, oscillating between grounded crime fighting and over-the-top supernatural conflicts. Despite running for 2 full seasons, NightMan never managed to break through as a major hit. Ratings were never particularly strong, and by the second season they had begun to decline further, signaling NightMan had run out of momentum. The decision was made to quietly end the series, with the final episode airing on May 17, 1999. There was no grand finale, no major conclusion to Johnny Domino's story, just an abrupt ending that left the character's fate open-ended. For years after its cancellation, NightMan remained largely absent from the home media market. It wasn't until June 12, 2018 that NightMan finally saw an official DVD release. Lionsgate Entertainment released the complete series as a box set, giving fans the opportunity to revisit the show for the first time in years. So going back to the original question, why did NightMan fail to make a lasting impact? The answer lies in a combination of factors. The show was based on a character that was never a household name, struggled with inconsistent storytelling, suffered from production challenges, and never had the resources to compete with bigger, more polished superhero properties. While it had a lot of potential, it was ultimately unable to rise above its limitations. In the end, NightMan was an experiment in superhero television at a time when the genre was still finding its footing. It may not have become a classic, but for those of us who watched it, it remains a unique piece of 90s TV history. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content.